are listening to the Balancing Act podcast. Here's your hosts, Jamie Wonko and Joe Vitale.
Hey, and we are officially recording.
Hello, and welcome back to the Balancing Act podcast. I'm Jamie Wonko here with Mr. Joseph Vitale, and we are happy to say that Season 3 is brought to you by our principal sponsor, Teachers Insurance Plan. Check out their website for more information and give them a call to get a quote. Teachers Insurance Plan, auto insurance that brings exclusive educator savings and exceptional customer care to New Jersey and Pennsylvania educational employees.
I got a hot take. You want to hear my hot take? Somebody I know might have been filmed for a commercial that may or may not be very soon coming out for Teachers Insurance Plan. Did you know about that?
I didn't.
Well, it's you. So
secret keeper, keeping the secrets.
Listen, so many cool things are happening. And it's very exciting. Yeah, it's very cool. So we definitely want you to check out our sponsor. Please support a business that supports our show, which we would greatly appreciate, because we appreciate you, don't we?
We do.
We do. So we have a guest today, a very special guest. We are going to have so many New Jersey Italians in the room. It's going to be, we need to center ourselves and get ourselves ready for this one. So let's bring him in. Let me hit the right button here. Hey, Joe Nappi. How are you, buddy? Good to see you.
Doing great, Joseph. How are you, Jamie? Great to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for joining us today. You have been someone we've been trying to catch for quite a bit of time now. So we are excited that we've caught you in our pod here. We're so happy to have you and hear your inspirational story, which I have heard it before and it is inspiring. So I'm very happy to hear it again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So let's dive into it. Tell us a little bit about your journey and what makes Joe Nappi Joe Nappi.
Sure. So I got into teaching for the money, right? It was all about that. That's what,
like we all do.
Like we all do.
I've never regretted that decision ever since to get in here to go through this. But
nobody's got a side hustle.
Yeah, I wish. I got to link up with teachers. Maybe I can get a side hustle sponsorship there. But I was quite the problem child in high school and middle school. Quite the difficult situation for me. So I did not love school. I did not have big dreams of being a teacher. I was actually quite happy to get out of high school entirely, which did not really end well for me. I was caught forging doctor's notes my senior year of high school and sort of politely asked to leave. We made a mutual decision that it was in our best interest for me to move on at that point. Yeah. So not quite the smooth sailing. And at the time, my family lived in Bayonne, so I was quite happy. I honestly thought I was going to go work on the docks or maybe at the bulk center up on Tunnelly Ave. I was more than happy to be done with school. But my little brother was coming up behind me, was about to go into high school. And I was very happy to go off into the world and get a job working somewhere. I was done with school. I had not liked school. School had not liked me. It was a kind of a mutual decision there. And then my father decided that he was going to move us down to Bayville in Ocean County, New Jersey. And when we moved down there, it was kind of a fresh start for him to go to a new high school. It was a fresh start for my dad. And he basically made me an offer I couldn't refuse, right? On our Italian theme today, that, if I went to community college, because I had always been very bright, even though I had not much enjoyed school in my teens, that if I went to community college, I could get free room and board at his house, and never one to miss a free meal off the community college I went. I was going to become filthy rich as a computer scientist. And that was my career path. And soon I found myself miserable again. Going to those college classes was not really much for me. So again, what I didn't know through a lot of this story and what I understand now, because I was diagnosed with it in my 30s, is that I suffered with ADHD for most of my life. And this was part of the reason I've also been very intelligent. So I could finish my work in a second and then be up disrupting your class for the rest of the remaining 60 minutes of the period. And I enjoyed the attention that I wasn't getting at home and there's a very complicated scenario. But, somebody with undiagnosed ADHD as a computer science major is not really a career path that's going to work out very well. And I soon found myself miserable again and considering dropping out. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I think if I'm being honest with you, it was a lot the fact that I had taken on student loans myself that kind of brought me back my sophomore year. And that sophomore year really changed my life forever. That was September of 2001. And having grown up in Bayonne, my stepmother ran a daycare center out of our house. I think it was illegal, but I think we're past the statute of limitations now. So I think I'm already telling you this. But at that point in time, two of the kids that she watched, their mother rather, was actually killed in the World Trade Center.
Oh,
And growing
goodness.
up going to Bayonne High School, I got a Wonko here. I know you know about this a little bit. Like Bayonne High School, whoever wrote the busing laws in New Jersey, I think was clearly from Bayonne High School because it's a 3-mile peninsula, so you can't get a bus no matter where you live. The high school is like dead in the middle of
Yeah.
town.
Yep.
So rather than take the city bus up in the morning, Colleen used to drive me up. So really, from like freshman year all the way through junior year, she was my ride up to school every single day. And her death was really crushing to me. To watch her family go through that, to see all those things, really kind of sent me in an existential crisis about like what was this for? Like, am I really just going to suffer for the rest of my life to get a paycheck? Like, what do I want to do with this? And it was the girl I was dating at the time, who's now actually my wife and out enjoying her afternoon at the gym. She was the one who suggested to me that I would make a great teacher. And she pointed to my uncle. He had worked in Albany for years, and like although he was never awarded teacher of the year or any of those like big awards or things like that came with it, like he had a massive impact on kids' lives. And I remember hearing the stories of the kids that he had impacted and the things that he did. So when I got into this profession, like a lot of the reason that I got into this was because I really truly believed that it gave me an opportunity to make a positive difference. And after 20 years in the profession, I'm positive that is true, that you can absolutely make a positive difference on kids' lives and things like that. And that's really what's driven me through this career, was to get in for some really lofty goals. And then, of course, I had no idea what I was doing. So, kind of trying to saying you want to change the world is one thing, actually doing it. Now, that's another story altogether. And I've spent the last 20 years in my classroom trying to figure out how to make that positive difference and how to have an impact in kids' lives. And I've also spent a lot of time reflecting on my own scenario and like what I didn't like about schooling, what I didn't get out of schooling, and how we might think about reforming that to make sure that we don't sort of graduate kids out into the world who are so disenchanted with education that they're going to go work on the docks when they could have done something. Not that there's anything wrong working on the docks. I've got many wealthy friends who were on the docks, who
Yes.
didn't take on the college loans that I did. So that's kind of the shortened version, Joe. I know you don't want to hear like the whole 2-hour
No,
version of that.
He does want to hear it.
I
And
mean, I want to
shout
hear.
out to
I
the
want to hear about.
longshoremen's, because the longshoremen's are, making quadruple what we're making. So yeah, thank goodness for that.
I remember early in my when we first bought the house here, I remember my friend Brian, who's still a longshoreman over there, was in the backyard saying, you took on $100,000 worth of loans, and now you're taking on this mortgage over here to do this, and I'm getting paid twice your salary, and I didn't even finish high school through this. So there's something to be said there, but I do think there's more to life than money in a lot of ways. Not that money is not nice, and not that we shouldn't be paying teachers more than we should, but
I mean,
there's
I
other
want to go
things.
back to the forgery of doctor's notes. I mean, how?
So this was a brilliant.
I don't
I
want.
think today with the medical laws, I would have gotten away with it. I think I could have gone through this. So I always struggle with like, should I be telling this to students or not? When
No, that's all
I'm
right.
being honest with these conversations, but it was really a simple. I took doctor's notes, like you would get the paper doctor's notes, and I figured out that if you whited out the cause and the date, that for 10 cents down at the library, you had as many doctor's notes as you wanted. So I would just write them in. Now, of course, the fault in my plan is that I don't know medical conditions. So I would write like stomach flu. So I think I had like 40 days of the stomach flu before this raised the attention of the nurse, who I think raised the attention of the vice principal, who then we had quite the conference after that. Yeah, they go through.
Yeah, interesting.
So, I mean, but it's an interesting thing. And I talk about this sometimes with kids and with teachers too. I mean, it's an interesting question because I mean, honestly speaking, they could have held me back. I mean, like I was technically in violation of the attendance policy. I had too many days out. I didn't do this. I think like the infuriating part to them was that I was like passing classes, even though I'd been out for 40 days through this, because I was smart enough to sit down and get a 90 something on a test. And that was, the way that we weight grades sometimes, like assessments are 60, 70% of the grade in the class. And I had really good SAT scores, and I had this, and yet I was not coming to school or contributing anything meaningful. And like, I think there's like some really important reflections in that story that we often kind of gloss over in the things to go through it. So, I mean, it's interesting on a lot of levels, Joe. I'm sure we could do many podcasts on unpacking
Yeah, I know, but you
all
also
that's
yeah, you also mentioned about, now as an adult being diagnosed with ADHD and as someone who, also has some OCD diagnosis myself as I got older. Like it kind of opens your eyes to things that happened in the past. Like are there, undiagnosed things that you experienced in your educational career that maybe, could have been treated a little bit differently, So you make some very good points and some valid points about, things that we might need to reflect back and look on. So for sure.
I hope so. I mean, and again, I think it's always a question of resources in education. I don't have to lecture to teachers about how hard it is to have the resources that you need, and to be supported and those sort of things. But, it's definitely for me, I was passing classes. And like that was the only seeming standard or like the only way that I would have been evaluated or I would have been taken down to like look at the issues that were happening. Like the fact that I was smoking weed before school every day, didn't seem to register, on those things. The fact that I was like super angry and like, wearing Slayer shirts and drawing, skulls on every paper that I mean, like some of the things I think that might be like some interesting warning signs to have a conversation with were lost in the sauce. And like in fairness to my teachers at Bayonne High School, because I don't put any blame on them too. Like it was quite the situation up there to have to try to deal with. And I give a lot of credit to your father-in-law for trying to keep this ship on track because there were a lot of issues in Bayonne High School that a kid struggling with divorce and his own sort of issues probably was at the bottom of the heap of fires that my teachers were putting out on any given day while they were in that place. So I give them a tremendous amount of respect, even though we didn't necessarily click in the way that I wish that we would have. I don't fault them for that at all. I just think that it's something that to be cognizant of in this profession, or that there's a lot of kids out there that need your help, even if they're not necessarily on the radar of the child study team necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also when you think about like the mid '90s, the topics that we are like openly share now about diagnoses and mental health awareness weren't handled, if at all. Certainly not in the way that they are today.
Yeah.
They're not, recognized, appreciated, acknowledged in the same way.
There was no there was
Yeah,
there was no social emotional learning. It was rub some dirt on it. Like we all heard that,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um yeah, different time, right? I mean, we all were in school around the, in the 90s at the same time. So
I
I
mean,
think
Joe is the oldest, if anyone's
I'm the
keeping
old,
score.
I'm a
Yes.
I'm a what am I, 58 according to your husband? Every year I'm older.
Oh my goodness,
Um
2 Joes and a Jamie. I should say Joseph is the
yes.
oldest.
Yes,
Yes.
I am. I have it on my, yeah, there you go. So yeah, you also, I know one of the things we were trying to lock down a time to talk, and you said like, "Hey, I'm going to be in Europe this summer with the New Jersey Holocaust Commission and traveling around," and I was very intrigued by that. I mean, you're talking to two history teachers here, so I'd love to hear about a little bit about that journey, and the trip that you took this summer, and also, what the impetus behind that whole thing was. So
Yeah, so I mean, you have, and honestly, you two are prime candidates if you wanted to go on this trip too. It's running every year through the New Jersey Holocaust Commission, and this is, I mean, it's truly an exceptional trip. It's like a once in a lifetime kind of event here. Maud Dame, who is a local, like she's literally in the New Jersey Hall of Fame. She was the president of the Board of Education. She was one of the formative members of the New Jersey Holocaust Commission to begin with, and she was also a hidden child in the Netherlands during World War II. Holocaust survivor who shares her story publicly and goes out and talks about this. I mean, and she's literally a national treasure. She's just an unbelievable person to be around. She's going to turn 90 in January and has more energy than I do at half her age to go through. So she's always,
wow,
somewhat making me question my life decisions about what maybe I should be doing better to take care of myself. But she leads this journey through Europe. So you go to Berlin, and then from Berlin, we take a tour through three cities. Well, first we stop in Prague, and then we go through three cities in Poland, sort of touring through camps, touring through the experience that many of her family members unfortunately suffered at the hands of the Nazis. And then the trip ends with 4 days in Amsterdam, and we tour the village that saved her. You go back to the actual house that she was hidden in. You hear her story firsthand.
Wow.
I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. And again, like I'm somebody who's been teaching the Holocaust for a long time, and I've been to lots of museums and professional development workshops and all those sort of things. I've always kind of aspired to go over to see it, and I know going to see these things is it's an unbelievable experience to be there, but to be there and to be guided through it by somebody who lived it, I think just adds such another element to this. And they really do a fantastic job of like bringing in all these different perspectives and complicating the story and not leaving you with like, really simplistic good guy, bad guy narratives here, but really helping you to really grapple with the complexity and the challenges that people had to deal with in these scenarios, right? That it wasn't as easy. I mean, I always say this, like you teach younger kids and they're just like, oh, I would have punched the Nazis and we would have, and I'm like when you live it and you're in these experiences and you see this sort of stuff, like it's really, really tough to wrap your mind around it and understand. They do it in a respectful way. They do it in an accessible way. They do it in a way where not only do you learn all day about really heavy history, but you also have the night to kind of relax. And Maud's very good at kind of breaking the ice and not only just leading us in reflection, but giving us the freedom to kind of enjoy ourselves in the evening and to blow off some steam. So it's not just a tremendously emotionally taxing journey. So I keep teasing her, I give her vitamins. I'm like, you got 10 more years in you, Maud. You can keep doing this to your 100. There's no doubt about that. But this is offered every single year. And I would just say to you, if you're a teacher in New Jersey, it's open to you. You can apply through it. The NJEA is tremendously generous in paying half the cost of this. There are grant opportunities out there that could cover the other piece of this. But I mean, I would say this entire 2 weeks in Europe, top-notch hotels, like the best learning experience on the Holocaust that I've ever had in my entire life. And again, you're going out of pocket like $2,500, including your spending money to do that. I mean, like it's the bargain of a lifetime to go out and do this. And again, if you're creative with some of the grant opportunities, I had members of my cohort who went out, and didn't pay anything out of pocket because they got it picked up by grants. They got it picked up by other people who were out there. So I would greatly encourage everyone, if you have that opportunity while you still can to see this stuff with a Holocaust survivor as your guide to go over there. Like, again, I would tell you to go on the trip, even if she wasn't there, but the fact that she's there and that she's committed to going back on a 90th year. I mean, it's so special. It's something that I'm still processing. We came back in July and like, I'll still sit down and like think about something else that, I need to reflect on there. So I can't recommend it enough. It's just an incredible opportunity.
And that's what you teach at your, and what school are you at again? I'm sorry.
So hold on. Hold on. Let's back up a
go.
little bit because we went from 2001 to 2025, but we missed a little bit
yes.
of time in between. So can we just backtrack for a second and go back to 2001? You have this like tragedy that hits close to home, and you are now pivoting to where am I in this world and what am I doing next?
And my wife was the one who really pushed me in this direction of being a teacher. And one of the things that she said to me at the time, because I mean, I kind of laughed at the idea of being a teacher. Like it was like, I was very happy to never go back to school. And that was not something I had on my bingo card. And one of the things that she said to me was like, if you were in charge, you could make it anything that you wanted it to be. And that was something that's really exciting to me. Like it's something that I still think about a lot about how do you change. And I think it's one of the beautiful things about this profession is that you really do have the opportunity to shape your day to day and to figure out what you really want to do with these kids and how to move them forward and to do those sort of things. And it's really, that challenge of that consistent growth, that consistent thing is something that I looked into. So I went and enrolled into education program over there. I went to history, honestly, to understand 2001. Like, I don't sugarcoat this part of the story at all. I was not a very tolerant and loving young man when I came out of high school, and 9/11 certainly did not push me in a direction towards more tolerance. And I went into history really with like this idea of like understand your enemy. And I was like studying Islamic culture and trying to understand all those things. All my brothers were in the military. So it was a very confusing time in my life. So I had this like aspirational idea about like trying to do something positive with it, but I was also still a very lost young man. And I give a lot of credit to education and sort of breaking some of these things. Especially, I had some teachers who taught me. I took like class. I think pretty sure I'm still on a watch list. This is why I get searched so often when I go through the airport, because I took all these classes on like radical Islamist thought. So you're like buying the books that like Osama bin Laden read and like reading the sort of backstories to these things. And like as wild as that was, like my teacher did such a phenomenal job of framing this as it is. And like I still use this analogy in my class with kids. Like I grew up in a Christian household, I grew up in a Catholic household, no judgment on wherever anybody comes from. But, there's an organization called the Ku Klux Klan that's out there. And, if you go to the Ku Klux Klan's website, and don't go to the Ku Klux Klan's website, don't give them the clicks, but if you did go to the Ku Klux Klan's website,
We will
they
not be
describe
linking
themselves.
that. We will not be linking
Yeah,
that
yeah,
in
yeah.
the
Don't put
episode
that on the
description.
ticker down at the bottom.
Yeah, we will not do
we
that.
don't need any hits for the Klan.
No.
But the Klan's website, like they describe themselves as a Christian organization. Like this is in the first line of their thing. And like one of the things that she phrased to me was like, you haven't grown up as a Christian. How would you like it if somebody who was completely ignorant to your entire culture, the way that they were introduced to it was through the Klan doing something horrible to their family, and then you understanding Christianity through the lens of the Klan? Like how would that, I mean? And that really shifted my perspective. And like I give a ton of credit to my teachers for really humanizing a population that I was othering in my mind. Like I was at war with this population, and really like pushed me to go and like sit down and listen to imams and talk about the faith and hear these sort of things. And to me, it was like a tremendous eye-opening experience, helping me understand how ignorant I was, how one-sided I was, how I wasn't looking at multiple perspectives over here. It ended up being very cathartic for me, I think, because you needed that, I think, for myself to heal and to like let that anger go and like go away, let those sort of things happen. And it's also something that I think is valuable to bring back to your kids in your classroom, is that even if you teach, and unfortunately we teach in one of the most segregated states in the country, if not the most segregated state for education in the country. But I was in a class with no Muslims, and this teacher shifted my perspective in a way where I saw their humanity for the first time in my life. And I'm ashamed that it was 20, you know what I mean, or 19 when that happened. But, I don't think lying about that is also, serves anybody any purpose, and so I think that's really what education offers you. If you take some time to consider that outside of it. It's to me, it's never been about test scores or, any of those sort of things. It's about the impact that you can make on a kid, the critical thinking that you can give to a kid, the different perspectives on the world that you can give to a kid that can really, I think, are more valuable than almost anything else you can take with you out into the world.
Yeah, that's a very powerful message, and one that I think sometimes I applaud the fact that you're being so honest about your journey and where you came from and where what kind of headspace you were in. I'm sure you're not the only American who grew up in this area, who witnessed some of the things that take place and had the loss that you had, who maybe had some bias or negative thoughts about um, a entire group and religion full of people that it's definitely something that you needed to reframe it. I applaud that teacher for the perspective that they gave you and how they kind of spun it to allow you to think about it a different way. That's very powerful.
I think so too. And again, it's what eventually leads me into Holocaust education, right? It's trying to because I mean, I think at the heart of this, like if I get down and I boil this down to like what was it that made me pursue this, it was that somebody murdered somebody that I cared about because of who they were. Right. And I think that sort of blind hatred, that othering, that completely distancing itself is, it was kind of a natural progression that as I started to dig into questions that look like that I ended up at the Holocaust, arguably, the largest scale version of that sort of mentality. And I wish I could sit here and tell you like, oh, it's completely gone from society, Joseph, and we've moved on to a promising new world of utopian dreams out here. But unfortunately, these lessons and trying to get these across to kids, especially who live in these social media bubbles, who exist in these worlds that are often, uh, you know, very apathetic and very, opposed to sort of, human empathy and understanding other positions. And we've all kind of siloed ourselves into these different spots. Like, I think these lessons are more important now than ever as we go through. So.
Agree. So where did you continue to go? So after you left community college, where did you continue your education? And then tell us also after college, where did you start teaching?
Right. So I went to Ocean County College, and then I went from Ocean County College. And my advice, I say this all to people. I think community college was great. I got a phenomenal education there at OCC, even though it wasn't my choice to go there. My grade point average was 2.0, so I didn't have a lot of options. But it was a phenomenal education that I got at the community college and saved me a lot of money that I didn't have. And then I went off to Rowan. So Rowan University was where I ended up doing my teaching degree and ended up getting my history major there from them. And senior year, when I was doing my student teaching, my father had a stroke. So I ended up having to go back home to take care of him. So the end of my senior year was very chaotic for me. I was like driving back and forth to Bayville to help take care of him and going back to finish my classes. So when school ended, I kind of like abruptly shut it down and went back to Bayville. I was cooking at the time. This was like my side hustle through college was cooking, and I applied to 50 high schools across the state, and not to toot my own horn, but I was pretty good. I mean, at this point, I was paying my loans entirely. My dad was a postal worker with 5 kids, so there's not, the 529 did not exist in my family. It was all on me, to pay these things off. So for me, I took my education very seriously. I was like top of my class education, award for they gave these medallion awards for like student teaching excellence, but I couldn't get called back for an interview. They're like the only 2 districts that I got an interview in was Jackson because I knew a teacher there, and Monmouth Regional because my fiance's aunt was the secretary of child study team. Like that's it. Nobody else wanted to talk to me. I went to both of those interviews. Apparently, they did not go too well because both of them passed on me to go through. Jackson was about to open Liberty High School, so they were like, if you want to sub for a year, you can come back. And I just couldn't afford it. I was paying my dad's mortgage at that point in time. Like there was a lot of stuff going on. So I was, I needed money. So I was happy to stay cooking and doing that sort of stuff. And then Monmouth Regional passed on me, and I was kind of having panic attacks. Honestly, I thought like, oh, I spent all this money, I got to pay all these loans. I'm just going to be cooking forever. I should have listened to my friends. It just went right to do this, and then I got a call. I think it was like August 30th. The person that they had hired as a maternity leave fill-in at Monmouth Regional High School bailed and went to Old Bridge for more money. And they called me like August 30th and were like, can you come in and start tomorrow? And it was like, yeah, I'll be there. Absolutely. So I remember I was teaching like the maternity leave for like all like AP and honors history class, like nothing that I was familiar with at that point in time. So I'm like reading the book. The first year was a disaster. Like it was just like literally, as cliche as it is, like, let me just stay one day ahead of
Yeah.
these kids and pray they don't figure out I'm a fraud. That was kind of my first year. And then, after that, the woman who I was doing the maternity leave with, another member of our department ended up moving up to vice principal. So they offered me the position, and I've been there ever since. So this is 20 years later. I'm still at the Reach. Go Falcons. We got that.
Very nice. And you're specifically teaching Holocaust history, correct?
Yeah, so I run a dual enrollment course with Kane University. So the kids get college credits their senior year. So it's a senior elective. So I have 2 sections of that. I also teaching U.S. History 1, which I kind of love. We do like some local history stuff in our community in Tinton Falls, which is super fascinating. And I've had the honor the last couple of years of doing Intro to Psychology, which is actually what I started with in my student teaching, and then got an opportunity to come back and teach later on, which is a really super fun class and has so many interesting connections with the Holocaust. Which is really like social psychology has really been a fascinating lens to think about all these things through. So I think in my years, I think I've taught about every. I mean, I can't think of a class like sociology, psychology, worlds, US 1, US 2, economics. I mean, I don't know if there is a class out there that I haven't taught at this point in time. So it really had a lot of them, but I do prefer kind of the US 2 and the Holocaust lens. So I was very happy when I had the opportunity to get that class and to teach that.
Well, and we jump forward a little bit to 2024, right? Giving the Joe Nappi timeline. And you were named New Jersey's State Teacher of the Year, which is a pretty amazing journey to think about. The Slayer kid in the back of the room drawing skulls on his notebook. I was friends with a lot of those kids. Not gonna lie. I didn't listen to the music, but I was friends with a lot of those kids. But yeah, it's a very interesting journey for you to be, going on that path and wind up being, New Jersey State Teacher of the Year. I gotta ask how that actually comes about because I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I got nominated as my school's teacher of the year, right? So that was one of that in our school you get put up by somebody nominates you, and then there's a committee of teachers who decides who that is in that year. So I got put in that way, and then as the teacher of the year, you get a chance to apply as the county teacher of the year. I got teacher of the year in the district, I think like back in 2010, and I was just so busy. I was coaching football, I was doing this, I was doing that. I never had ever submitted the county teacher of the year application. And I always kind of felt bad about that because I was like, oh, well, who knows what would like, not that I would have done it, but I felt like I should have at least, if you did that, you got that opportunity. So when I got the second chance to do it, I was like really, wrote the essays and really paid attention and did those things. Also helped that I wasn't coaching. I don't know if I would have had time, to do it at that point in time, but my kids were in sort of the minivan stage. So I'd stepped away from football to make sure that I was there with them through those years. So I wrote those essays, and then they pick you as county. And then if you get picked as county, you're automatically in a state. And then I got picked as the state, and then it went on to national, going over there, and then I ended up being a national finalist. And I was like, this is really getting out of what this is. And it's not exactly what I had signed up for when I put in for the county teacher of the year. But I mean, it's been an incredible journey. It was the part of the cool parts about winning state teacher of the year are that you get to sort of join this cohort of teachers from all across the country. And that honestly, there's been a lot of cool stuff getting to go to the White House and space camp, which was always like, I don't know if you remember that movie from the 80s. That was very
I
big,
do.
Into that, as a kid. So that was kind of like a very bizarre thing to get a chance to actually go to space camp and do that. And, get a chance to like sit down with Cory Booker and talk education. These are things that like I never thought in my life would ever actually happen to me. So it's been great in a lot of different ways to go through it. But I really do feel like, getting the chance to meet these teachers from all over the country and hear their incredible stories, because every single one of them, like when you have a chance just to like in a downtime to just have a beer and talk to them and hear, what it is that brought them here, like it's unbelievable. The stuff that people do. And I know that they feel the same way that I do, which is that, I'm not the best teacher in New Jersey. I'm not the best teacher in my house, right? My wife is a better teacher than I am, who's over there to go through this. Like teaching's not a competitive sport. And every single one of us knows, like I could tell you 10 other teachers that have done so many incredible things, that have an incredible story, that do this, and they just don't get recognized. So I think having that moment, like to elevate other people in my life and tell these stories and hear about, people who are making an impact every single day, that to me has been like a really meaningful part of this experience. So it was cool in a lot of different ways, Joe, but it was like kind of an out of control roller coaster. I think when we were talking about national, it was like, I'm going to be out for 2 years out of my classroom. Like, I just want to go back and teach. I was never like aspiring for the DOE or like some administrative position. I just love teaching. Like, I just want to go back to my classroom. So I don't know, like it was an interesting ride, to go through that process. But I'm glad now that I'm back where I belong with my kids in the classroom.
I'd be interested to hear what some of your conversations were with Cory Booker about the state of our profession. It's something that we talk about often. If you're watching this on the YouTubes or on Spotify or anywhere else where you could see us, you could tell we've been doing this for a while. So we have a little bit of experience in the classroom between the three of us. Joe, what year is this for you, if you don't mind me
20.
This is 20.
Said 20.
Yeah, this is 20.
So this is year 20. So between the two of us, we have over 60 years of teaching.
What about me?
Close to.
Am I not here?
Just over here
no,
for me,
between the three. Did I say the two of it? No, I said the three of us. Did I say the three of us?
The two of us.
I misspoke. I meant to say
plural.
the three of us. But if you do the math, my math was correct because it's over 60 years. Because
30, 40. Okay.
I was going to say, after you told, I thought you just told me you taught for 40 years. I was like, you look phenomenal, Joe. So
no, I do, right? I look phenomenal.
Yeah, right, for 40 years in the classroom. This is unbelievable.
I was talking
all your hair. This
Today in class, I'm talking about the Magna Carta. I was like, it was written in, I always say this. I'm like, it was written in 1215. No, I was not alive during that time. I always say something ridiculous like that.
It's actually more like 70, but
yeah,
I don't really
math. It is
math,
more like 70.
Yeah.
I don't really math. So it's 27 for me and it's 25 for you, Jane.
For me,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's closer to 70. Okay. But yeah, I'd be interested to hear what some of your conversations were with Senator Booker about the state of our profession and how we can attract, qualified candidates to this job. It's something that we talk about often. I'd love to hear if you're able to share what some of those conversations might have looked like, or what you guys talked about, or even what other teachers across that that little cohort that you're talking about. What is everybody talking about how we can make this profession more long-term sustainable?
I mean, I took a more practical lens when I met McCoy. You have to remember when I met him, it was 2024, so we were just about to go into this election, and everything in Congress is just on pause as everyone's waiting to see what exactly is going to happen in November. So you have to kind of be practical, I think, in those relationships. So a lot of what we talked about was just trying to get across to him, the value of teacher voice in this process. That so much of what happens, especially at a federal level, is so top down and this is really something that I'm passionate about in New Jersey. I'm passionate about this, is just giving teachers a seat at the table. Like, I feel like we have so many, experts and so many people out there. And again, I'm never taking away from the value of educated opinions in here, but you really need both a top down lens and a bottom up lens, right? And we all see the ground view of where these policies impact kids, of how these things impact our classrooms, of how they go forward, and even like well intentioned things, right, that go through there. Like, teachers should know about bloodborne pathogens has turned into a nightmarish scenario for, teachers across the country, of going through these horrible, trainings when we could be doing other stuff every single year and doing the, what I mean? So I think like the impact of that stuff on us gets lost in the sauce a lot of ways. In terms of like big recruitment and retention, like obviously I've got a lot of ideas in terms of, money and things, incentives and things like that we could talk about. But the practical reality on the ground in 2024 was that none of that was going to happen, right? We're sitting in the middle of this election. So I felt like the best thing that I could do was kind of relate my experience, talk to him about the mental health crisis that I see with my kids, talk to him about the things that we're seeing at the ground level that I want to make sure are getting across there. And hopefully, if Washington ever figures things out, which I'm like hearing this sentence in my own head as I spit it out, but hopefully, one day when we actually get back to doing the people's business in Washington, that, we could actually have a seat at the table and talk about some of those collective things. I mean, I think a lot more has been focused in the state in terms of trying to get teacher voices at every level of this. So I like one of my great successes as teacher of the year was pitching to the commissioner of education that he should sit down and talk with teachers from across the state. And this is something like I give him a lot of credit. He was meeting with the NJA, he was hearing from some of those things. But yesterday we sat down with teachers from all across New Jersey and just had an open conversation with the Commissioner of Education about the testing rollout, about the reality of
Ugh,
teaching in this sort of scenario. They go, what I mean? Like, these are things again that like we have to have conversations about and we have to talk about, because I
well,
think again, what the view from 30,000 feet is not the same view as it is on the
yeah,
ground.
it's
And the
it's
more
just
again, like
it's
we're in this together. You know what I mean? Like we
Yeah.
we should be
yeah,
collaborating together to make
and
sure that
we're
our students have the best
and
possible
Joe,
and we're not, But
yeah,
and
yeah,
good, James,
yeah.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah. What do you think is something that so I know that you have kids because I believe it was your daughter when the day that I saw you speak at Kane, I was there as a chaperone and I think your child was there with
Yeah,
you. Yeah, I don't think with
yeah.
you, but like happened to be there the same day or
I have
something.
two daughters, so I got one is a
Okay.
sophomore in high school, pray for me, and the other is in sixth grade.
Okay.
So they're both
So
in the Jackson School District.
I think it was your younger one that was there
Mhm.
when I was there with the kids. But so what do you think is something that as a teacher for such a long time, way before you became a parent, right? What is something that happened in the classroom or something that is has happened to you that informs your parenting decisions? So something from your teaching experience that has changed your approach with your own kids.
I think one of the things that I wrote, and like some of this has come from coaching in a lot of ways. Like I actually saw a kid who was here over the weekend. And I remember the story because I was coaching football and the kid had come out. He wanted to play quarterback. And I was like, okay, so how much football have you played? And he'd never played before in his life. And he's coming in. And I'm like, just so you know, like this is the most difficult position to play, and like you're starting from a novice. So I just want you to like temper your expectations. Like I'm more than happy to work with you here. I'm like, but you should always, hope for the best and kind of plan for the worst. So what's plan B? Like how are we gonna, he had really no plan B for this. And we went through it. And it was a struggle. Like the kid was struggling all the time. It was really difficult on him. I would often see him like kind of breaking down in the locker room and going through this. And eventually, I talked to him after practice and I'm like, like, how are things going? What do you think about this? And he basically told me like he wanted to be in the band. Like that was what he wanted to do. He had wanted to be in the band and he felt a lot of pressure from his father to be a quarterback. His dad had been a quarterback in high school and wanted him to be a quarterback and was really pushing him to do it. And it wasn't working out. He felt like he was in. And I was like, all right, well, we got to talk here. You know what I mean? Because I guess like my rote football coach answer is supposed to be like, never quit and stick it out and go through these sort of things. But like you could see that this kid was struggling. So I called dad to talk to dad just to let him know what I was seeing on the other side. And dad was completely open to him going to the band, like didn't mean to put these, but there was like no communication there between the two of them because he kind of was happy, obviously happy. I would have been happy too if my kid had decided to go play football and do that if I thought he wasn't. And he was happy because dad was happy and didn't want to go through this. You know what I mean? So I think for me, as a parent, like the thing I take away from it, and by the way, I saw him at a band competition. He's now, went to college, was in the band, now runs like, is part of like a drum corps thing that he does around the state to go over there. Cause after I had that conversation, I walked him down, introduced him to the band director, got him onto the band, did this, he turned his equipment in, explained to the team what he was doing. And went over there and went about his life. And like for me in those scenarios, like I try to think about that with my kids about like detaching my own expectations of like what I want them to do because obviously I have a lot of like go to Princeton, be like where to go to all these sort of things that I want to drive, but like it has to be about them. It has to be about their passions. It has to be about what they're interested in. I didn't have going to Anime Con on my bingo card for parenthood. You know what I mean? But that's like what really excites my daughter, and she's right. Somebody who did not love reading and those things, like when she partnered that with art and now she's creating her own stories and doing these sort of things. I think that sort of idea of like, we're all different and that, finding that spark, finding that passion, and then helping them to kind of go after that. That's what I've tried to model with my kids. And that's certainly not necessarily the way I was raised. I was also in a very rub dirt on it kind of household, you know what I mean, to come through this. But it's something that I think I picked up from this work where like understanding that every kid's not the same and, go be the best trumpet player you can be. You know what I mean? Like you're not a disappointment to me or to your teammates because you didn't suit the cleats, wrap the cleats up. Like it's about you. So that's, it's a struggle. And it's easy to say that. And then you see your kids doing things and you're like, oh, we really wish, that you were doing something else to go through this. I wanted my kids to love soccer. It didn't quite work out that way. I think you have to kind of let that stuff go and understand that and be there to support them and make sure that they go through that and keep those lines of communication open. I think that's another thing where like, and again, I don't fault my parents for this. They were very busy and, working tons of hours over the course of the week, but I didn't have, like there was no honesty between what was happening in my life and what I was saying to them. It was just always like, yeah, I'm fine. And then go, what I mean? So I don't want a yeah, I'm fine conversation with my kids at dinner. You know what I mean? I want to sit down. I want to have those things. I want to know what's going on in their life. So I think teaching has helped me a lot of ways, but I hope as a parent too, I think that's it. We'll find out if they're all, in prison later on in life. Maybe don't listen to this podcast. So we'll see how that turns out. We'll see how it works.
I doubt that that's going to happen. And at the same time,
you haven't met them yet, Joseph. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I
mean,
yeah.
I got, we all have some that are, is this the one that's going to, the reason I have all these gray hairs, she's sitting upstairs in my living room. I love her. She's amazing, but same reason. It's, I think that for me, I think a lot of my interactions with students also did change my parenting as I went through my career. I remember like even on another level, like I remember my daughter coming home and like doing homework for like first grade. First of all, why are first graders doing homework? Okay, that's the first thing. That's another question for another time. But yeah, so she's sitting there, she's doing homework, and I'm trying to explain to her something, and I'm not explaining it like her teacher is. So therefore, I am not doing it right, and then the tears start, and the frustration begins. And I think to myself as they got older and I see them doing things and look at, the math that they're doing in the 7th and 8th grade, which I am not a great math student. Like I think about the kids that go home that are in my classroom that are ELL students that are They don't have anyone at home that can help them. We can give them whatever tools we can give them to do it on their own, whether it be Google Translate or teaching them different extensions that they can use. But like when they're home, they're on their own. But at the same time, I don't need to give them stuff that they need to do for homework. Like if they don't finish something in class, that's one thing. If they need extra time, that's one thing. But as far as like giving them a homework assignment, they're on an island unto themselves. And I just feel like as I've went through my career, I've backed off more and more. And I do more with a homework assignment being like a long range plan for executive function, like how these kids can chunk it out and learn how to do something long term, teaching them that skill. That's more important to me than the work that they're doing. Does that make sense? Like that's kind of where I'm at right now in regards to like a homework assignment. Like, yeah, we're still talking about it. We're still doing it. Use it for background knowledge, but it's not like this end all be all has to be done. It's more about, can you manage the time in order to do it? Because I've watched my own children struggle with it, and I've changed my perspective as I've went through my career. So
yeah, and again, I don't disagree with you, because I think, again, if you look at the educational research on this, like the benefits that come from homework are, generally speaking, not, at least in my opinion, outmatched by the equity issues that homework creates. Especially when you're talking about, in terms of those grading systems and the things like that. Like, I grew up in an apartment with, 7 people in a 1-bedroom apartment. So, me going home and doing my homework was not going to happen in that sort of scenario
Yeah.
to go through this. And, luckily I was, had the intelligence to make it up in other places. But for kids who really need that assistance, like if this is a vital skill, then you really need to dedicate class time to make sure that those kids are getting it. I don't think sending it home with them and expecting them to do it on their own is realistic. I do hope, Joe, like in the positive end of the spectrum over there, one thing that was kind of fascinating that came from Casey Cuny, who's Florida, is advocating for AI as tutors for kids to go home, and equity to do this. They started with the AP program, but they created these like specific modules where they trained AI
yeah,
on the textbooks, on the work, on the things that they're doing over there. And then kids can go home and actually use this as a tutor. And the idea is to try to like roll this out for kids who need that help. Of course, it doesn't help if you don't have access to the internet, or you don't have,
well,
a quiet
there
place to
therein
do those things inside the house. But I mean,
therein lies the
hopefully,
problem.
maybe rather than, using technology as just a way for some people to hoard resources, maybe we could find ways to spread them out a little bit, and to
Yeah.
give them to other people. So maybe there's some hope for optimism there. But I'm with you on that, Mr. Vitale. I am not a big homework guy for the most part, unless you're talking like an honors level class where you signed, the college level class obviously
Yeah.
is that. And I'll tell you,
Here,
you have a lot of good company in this too, because this was we had these like random like shout out conversations with the state teachers of the year, and we had 57 of them, because they're from like the territories they're out there. But this is one of the things that we all agreed on, was like, we don't assign homework. Generally speaking, homework is only for honors level, college level classes to go through that. And I know that's not the case. I mean, like my daughter's at a school where they like mandate homework. You know what I mean? For them to send stuff home for them for like a certain amount of time at night. So I don't know. We do wild stuff in education all over the place, unfortunately, that I
yeah,
don't think is really backed up by research or backed up by, impact.
yeah.
So
So Joe, I'm going to continue to ask you to go out there and change the world. So
oh
that's
yeah,
great. It's great that you're
no pressure,
championing.
Joe.
It's great that you're championing that cause all by yourself. So awesome. Appreciate that. Um, so yeah, Joe, thank you very much for being willing to join us today on our conversation and for taking time out of your schedule to talk. It was very
Yeah, we
enlightening to
didn't even
hear.
get to solve PD. I thought we were going to
I
solve
know
PD stuff, but
exactly,
that's right.
right.
We
We were
don't, we don't have
we had
time to do it. You have to have me back at some point, and we'll
you know
solve the professional
we
development.
just we just
We
might
would love
have to,
that.
Joe.
Yes.
We would love that. Honestly, it's a great conversation, and I think that we consider ourselves stakeholders. We do. We're not on the same stage as you, but we feel this is very important to keep talking about how we're going to make this profession better, about how we're going to service our students better in the classroom, things that we can do that are going to make our profession even more profound than it already is. So again,
There are
Joe, I appreciate.
hundreds of your ex-students out there who would disagree with every word that just came out of your mouth to go through this or at that.
Well,
I'm
it's
nobody. And nobody knows
Jamie.
who I am. You've impacted hundreds of lives across the state. Don't undersell yourself and go in there. Your impact is amazing and rippling out through time out there with the rest of us. Those
And
Magna
Jamie's
Carta jokes are
Jamie's gonna
holding up.
say
It's not-
Jamie's gonna say yeah right, because she knows that I no, I mean in regards to yeah, meaning like yeah, Joe, you're right, not yeah right, like whatever. But Jamie, because I don't speak well about myself in that sense, because It's too boastful for
I
me.
don't support negative self-talk.
Yes, she does not support negative self-talk. So, Joe, I appreciate you very much and for being with us today. Jamie, I appreciate you, friend.
Joe's, I appreciate you both.
And don't forget to Joe, our season 3 is brought to you by our principal sponsor, Teachers Insurance Plan. Make sure you check out their website. We've linked it in our episode description. Teachers Insurance Plan, auto insurance that brings exclusive educator savings and exceptional customer care to New Jersey and Pennsylvania educational employees. I'm getting better at this. I'm getting better at that. The reading is going better. Okay. All right, Joe, thank you again for being with us. We'll see everybody next time on the Balancing Act podcast.
Bye.
Absolutely. Take care.
Look for the Balancing Act podcast every week on your favorite podcast platform. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Thank you for being a part of our audience. We appreciate you.